Another day of diplomacy, another day where Ukraine could be closer to a war. That's the mood here in Munich. The warning to Moscow from Washington.
We have engaged in good faith. Russia continues to claim it is ready for talks, while at the same time, it narrows the avenues for diplomacy.
The image Munich wants to send at this hour. Ukraine's President Zelensky meeting Western allies like Boris Johnson. Ukraine's leader was advised not to leave his country now, but this show of support matters to him as the West faces off against Russia.
If Ukraine is invaded and if Ukraine is overwhelmed, we will witness the destruction of a democratic state, a country that has been free for a generation, with a proud history of elections.
But even now, they're still talking about finding a way out.
I think diplomacy has not spoken its last word. It is of paramount importance that we keep up the diplomatic channels. As far as I'm informed, tomorrow President Macron will call President Putin.
But on the ground in eastern Ukraine, tensions mount. Residents being told to leave their homes by Russian-backed separatists to take refuge across the border. There's more incidents now of shelling with Ukrainian forces, the worst in years. The mood here in Munich is grim. Conferences like this are meant to accelerate diplomacy to resolve major world crises. But there's a growing pessimism that they can stop a conflict which would have massive consequences, not just for Ukraine, but for all of Europe and far beyond. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Munich.
Well, Vladimir Putin has been overseeing Russian military drills. He was joined by Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. The Kremlin says ballistic and cruise missiles were tested as part of annual strategic nuclear exercises. President Putin said the situation in eastern Ukraine was deteriorating and accused Western leaders of ignoring Russia's security concerns. Well, with me now is our business correspondent, Ben King, to tell us more about the economic impact that sanctions could have on Russia. Ben, welcome to you. Lots of the talk today about sanctions as a deterrent towards Russia. And Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, specifically saying that sanctions against Gazprom, the gas giant in Russia, can't be ruled out. What could those look like and what impact could it have on Russia?
Well, Gazprom is Russia's largest energy company. Russia produces huge amounts of natural gas, which flows west through Ukraine and supplies about 40% of European demand. Now, the amount of gas that's been coming from Russia over the past few years has fallen by 32%. Gazprom is still maintaining its basic long-term supply contracts, but nothing more than that. And failing to supply anything more in the market has helped to push prices up. And it's interesting, that's not the first time that this has been said, but it's interesting that leaders of Ursula von der Leyen and Boris Johnson's caliber have been raising that point. Shows just how much is at stake in this conflict, not just in the Ukraine, but across the whole of Europe.
And what about other sanctions, financial sanctions against specific people?
Well, Boris Johnson outlined three possible means of sanctions. The first one is to target specific individuals with sanctions directed at them. The second would be to prevent Russian companies using the London financial markets to raise money, which is a thing that they've been doing a great deal in recent years. And the third would be to try and open some of the secrecy which has allowed Russian individuals to hide their assets and their wealth from international inspection. Now, the sanctions that were brought in 2013 after an airliner was shot down over Ukraine only knocked 0.2% off Russian GDP, which is less than the fall in the oil price. So any real sanctions are going to have to be quite significant to actually bite into the Russian economy. And any significant sanctions will also have an impact the other way and hurt the economies which are imposing those sanctions too.
OK, thanks very much for telling us more about that, Ben King.